And it's lights out. Welcome to the Pitwall, your stop for fantasy Formula One content. This is our podcast. I'm your host, Jeanmark, and joining me this evening is my bro, Dominic, my father, Dr. David Kessler, and our great friend, Paola. This podcast is going to be special for me because it's the first one after my birthday, which was this last Sunday. I have joined the 30 club, and it is, well, I don't feel much different, but it is a new decade, a new era, a new chapter. And so that's pretty exciting. This time, we're going to talk about our lineups for this coming week. So let's start off with you, bro.
As you'll see, my lineup has not changed too terribly much since the last time I showed it off. As you can see, Ricardo is just about to get a bump. Good, because that's part of the reason why I picked him up. This lineup might look different come next Sunday, but this is what I'm working with right now.
And what about you, Dan?
So I picked up Russell to get the bump and Bottas also, so I got up by 0.2 million, which then got me to a complex decision on what to do next. If I change someone else, since I trade out Russell and Bottas and McLaren, then the question is, do I spend the extra money and replace Gasly with Leclerc and take negative 10 points, or Gasly for Ricardo and take negative 10 points, or stay pat and hopefully Gasly does a great job?
So tell me again, what were the options and why are you leaning towards Leclerc?
So Leclerc would maximize how much money I have. So I hope he would do well. The other option, since Ricardo did so well, is to pick up Ricardo, even though I won't be using all my money under my money cap. But if he podiums, I'll probably get more points than I would with Leclerc, who seems to be consistent but not on the podium.
It is highly rumored or speculated that Red Bull is going to give Verstappen his new engine and that he's going to take his grid penalty like what Bottas did this last race. Now, Bottas got a lot of points because he qualified on pole position, he won the sprint race, and he still finished third on the podium, so he was able to get bonus 10 points for finishing with that many places gained. So if Verstappen does a similar thing, he could still get a decent amount of points. But on the flip side, like you're saying, is that opens the door potentially of a non-Red Bull getting on the podium. It'll be Verstappen's goal to get third place. But if the McLarens are as fast as they were at Monza, he could be as high as fifth at the best, because there's going to be 4 Mercedes-powered vehicles that are just going to pull away. And so, yeah, Ricardo would be a potential option. And Paola, your lineup.
I haven't made any changes in a couple of weeks, but I'm considering taking Leclerc as my turbo driver and putting in Norris instead. I'll have to see how they do in practice. I'll specifically be looking at their performances, but I'm also taking into consideration that potential penalty grid and thinking about putting Hamilton back in. And that would mean that I would most likely have to take out Gasly and put Mazepin or someone, more in the 5-6 million range.
And you already have Russell on your team, and so it'd be someone else lower to be able to pick him up. Actually, that's something to take into consideration. We'll kick it over to our spreadsheet. You can find the link in the description below. I built this from the ground up. This is under the rank tab, and under streaks, you will see that there is a column for quali and race streaks. So for example, Ocon got plus 10 points for finishing the top 10 last race, but we've got Bottas, Verstappen, Gasly, Hamilton, Ferrari, Mercedes are all eligible for a quali race streak, which means if they finish in the top 10, they'll get plus 5 points. Alpine, if both drivers finish in the top 10 for the race, they'll get plus 10 points. So like you said, picking up Hamilton, who will probably perform really well, plus you'll get the bonus 5 points, pairing them up with other drivers that would get these bonuses could help with your team's scoring. So who are you leaning towards? Are you actually going to commit to having Hamilton over Verstappen, you think?
I think there's a very good chance I will, and then the decision will be more around, do I put in Norris and Ricardo? Leclerc doesn't do too well during practice. Can I keep Gasly in somehow? We'll just have to see how they do. But I think for right now, I'm kind of wanting to switch it up and put my faith on Hamilton.
Gasly has been surprising because despite his problems last race, most people thought that that was just an accident, fluke. And so his sentiment hasn't dropped. And that's someone also to look into because he could be one of the top performing vehicles. He's been consistent in his qualifying. And then if he doesn't get any accidents, he should be able to get a good haul of points. That brings me to my team. I had mentioned in the previous podcast that I had picked up Russell, and in doing so, I had to drop Red Bull and pick up McLaren. And my hope is that McLaren is really good this race, because I'm trying to use my upswing in the value, but I've already done 2 substitutions. And so I don't want to commit to a wild card just yet. I actually want to have the flexibility for who I'm going to mega driver. The week that I decide the mega driver, that's when I'm going to use my wild card, because right now it's between Verstappen and Hamilton. And I'm having to realize that I'm so Verstappen focused that, like you, if I ever switch to Hamilton, I have to then switch up some of my other positions. And so that's where I'm going to save my wild card. But hopefully Bottas will be good again. We talk about him every week. What do you guys think? If Bottas outqualifies Hamilton, will they switch him around to give Hamilton max points for the championship?
I think at this point they would. I think they will always lean towards making a call that favors Hamilton unless he starts getting considerable lead over Verstappen. Until that day, we'll continue to hear Wolf say, let Hamilton go.
Valtteri, this is James. What do you think, Dad? Do you think he will, because he's going to be at another team? Like, do you think he has the personality to actually say, no, I'm going to do my own thing? Because the last time he won a race was actually at Russia. And then after the race, he did that radio call. He says, to whom it may concern, F you. Well, he used the expletive, but... So he might be able to say, I'm going to assert myself again.
If he can get a lead and get ahead and Hamilton's not near him, I don't think he'll slow down just for Hamilton. I think if Hamilton's within a second or two and it's near the end of the race, maybe he'll concede a few points and let him get the first place. But if his pace is way ahead of everyone, I don't see him slowing down just to let Hamilton win.
That's a good point, because 2 years ago, when it looked like Ferrari was going to win Russia, just FYI for everyone in fantasy world out there, every year at Russia has been won by a Mercedes driver. So if you are wanting to consider who to put on your fantasy team, just recognize that it has always been won by either Hamilton or Nico Rosberg or Bottas. And so they're a very strong option, which is why the McLaren is looking like a really strong option too with that Mercedes engine. But 2 years ago, Ferrari actually was going to win that race. And Vettel got ahead of Leclerc, and they had some sort of pre-race plan. And so actually Leclerc was supposed to be ahead of Vettel. But Vettel said, well, he needs to catch up. I'm not going to just slow down because the track has these long straights. So he says, if I'm going to slow over, then I put myself at risk. So he says he needs to catch up. And so Bottas could do a similar thing, right? If he's just far enough ahead that Hamilton can't just catch up to him, he could say, hey, pace-wise, McLarens are really fast. Hamilton needs to, catch me if I'm going to just let him by. But what do you think, bro? Do you think Bottas has it in him?
I don't think he does. He had that opportunity to take the fastest lap, and he didn't. I think that he's going to just finish up the season. Probably not going to give him too much trouble, I wouldn't think.
Bottas, like anybody who's finishing a chapter of their lives, is thinking about, how do I want to end things? Similar to what Dominic said, I don't think he's going to want to stir up trouble. I don't think he wants that to be his legacy with Mercedes, because people do remember how drivers exit a team.
As we close this chapter, do you think we're going to be talking about Bottas every single week when he's at Alfa Romeo? Or do you think he's going to be just not the focus anymore? And we were just talking about him because he seems to be going through drama at Mercedes.
I think we'll be talking about Hamilton and Russell and how they're battling. And then if they crash each other out, then we'll talk about Bottas and how he's now getting on the podium and how he was such a good wingman. And
so, yeah, that's right. You did make that bold prediction that Alfa Romeo would get on the podium. 8 out of the 10 teams have been on the podium. Isn't that crazy? So we need Alfa Romeo and we need Haas to get on the podium. It's about time. We like to promo for you going into this race, our one race challenge. It is a single team entry, and because it is an opportunity for you to submit your team, you don't have to worry about trying to catch up or grinding for points week after week. There's a cool banner because we already have our 10 entrants. The code is in the description below, so you can join our one race challenge. The top 3 in point scores will be featured on a podium ceremony for our next podcast. Now, remember, there are 2 rules that we do. The first is we do base scoring, so we do not take in consideration Attribution Mega Driver points. And then second, if there are any ties for the podium spots, lowest value of the team will then get priority. But if you are the higher value when you tie, we'll give you the Fat Stacks Award. And also, we do give a Great Meme Team Award. So if you would like to be a shout out and have a good name for your team, definitely keep that in mind.
It's time for It's in the Numbers. So last week we had the numbers 18-0 and 0-3. The drivers were Tsunoda and Gasly, and those numbers represent the last lap that they completed for the qualifying and the race, respectively. So we had one taker, Kesko Ryan. Congratulations to you. We're going to move on to this week's It's in the Numbers. Dad, go ahead and take that away.
Well, first I got to mention that Kesko said it was a little challenging, so that was good. So I'm hoping this week might be challenging too. This is a historic Sochi Grand Prix. The numbers are 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 11, 12, 14, 17, 18, and 19, but not 3, 4, 9, 10, 13, 15, and 16. The goal is to name the racetrack feature. Good luck. And if you know what it is, post it and we'll give you a shout out if you got it right.
It's now time for League DRD. This is our special league rules that removes any sort of salary cap. Each is able to draft their unique drivers compared to their opponent, and this is available on our Google spreadsheet. We haven't been doing our races back to back to back to back, so there are some gaps, but currently I lead our league with 5 points, followed by Dad with 4, followed by Paola with 3, and followed by Dominic with 2. If you aren't scoring a championship point, you are awarded a credit, and you use credits to buy the 3 abilities that we have. Wild cards are worth 3. That's allowing you to hire a 5th driver, but a 3rd driver in your match. You could spend 2 credits to Mega Driver. You could spend 1 credit to Turbo Drive. Currently, Dad has 2 credits, Dominic has 3 credits, Paola has 2 credits, and I have 0, which is why, going to our result, I am so surprised that I was able to win the King's race without spending any credits. Bottas and Leclerc. Now, these are the results from 2 races ago at Zandvoort.
I'm just oddly comforted that it doesn't matter who I turboed, I still would have lost. Even if I had put that turbo on Paris, that would have taken me up to 45. And really, there's no combination of drivers from the ones that I picked that week that would have allowed me to win the King's race.
This is where I'm thinking, while Bottas isn't a wild card, he kind of is a little OP, because it seems like whoever has Bottas is winning every race.
Well, if he keeps winning, he'll get above the 21, and then he won't be an option anymore.
That's true. Just write him out till he's too good and becomes a wild card. In League DRD, a driver that averages over 21 points a race becomes wild card, so you can't draft them. We have ceilings and floors, so we cap out at 30, and our base is at 0. And so that brings all the drivers into play closer. Now, because I made an error, my inputs for Norris by accident, actually Dad and Dominic were going to be tied at 40 points. But then once I corrected the error, it bumped Perez and Ricardo's points down a little bit, and then Dominic, it slipped through your fingers by 3 points. And so similar to Paola, you also turboed and lost the King's race.
That would be sometimes. Honestly, I'd probably have more of a reaction if it wasn't so long ago and I don't remember what happened. So, unfortunate, I guess.
True. That now means that going into our next race, Dad and I will be facing off, and then Dominic and Paola will be rematching.
I hope this doesn't become a trend.
Oscillating back and forth. Let's go over to our draft page. Because Dominic has the fewest championship points, you pick your keeper first. Ricardo, Perez, Gasly, or Schumacher. For those of you at home, it's called League DRD or Driver Rotational Draft. You have an order of drivers that changes based off of how they finished positions for the last race. The higher your driver is, that means the fewer options there are for his next partner. But then if you draft someone who's at the bottom list, that means now you're available to pick everybody in the list.
I get Ricardo, and then I get Gasly. It's like a pretty okay deal to me.
Okay, that's a good one. So you're going to have Ricardo as your keeper?
No, I missed that.
Because he's lower in the championship, he's going to draft first, right? And because Gasly DNF'd, he's going to be able to get Gasly in his draft.
I'm still confused. It says Gasly is 19, which means you couldn't pick him up. So something on your graphics. Tsunoda is 20.
DRD manager is like flipping in and out and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Is Gasly not on the bottom anymore?
It depends on how you refresh the page.
My strategy might be different if Gasly's not on the bottom.
Right.
Well, according to this one, Verstappen's at the bottom, then Tsunoda, then Gasly, then Hamilton. All of them DNF'd. So they all should be the same. Because they're tied, then the algorithm switches them in and around.
As long as we...
Yeah, so
we
we'll
know
just say that those people DNF'd.
Then you can pick any of them.
So then what that means is I need to have the algorithm. That's what I need to do. Oh, because they're listed as in C. They're not listed as...
You might have to just, for all of the DNFs, manually input when they DNF'd. Tsunoda should theoretically be on the bottom. He didn't even do the race. And you just do them in order of when they got knocked out of the race.
Right. So for today's purposes, we're going to say that everyone who DNF'd, we're going to give them a green. Yeah, so everyone who's in the green is technically the same. Is that okay for right now, until I fix that formula?
So Hamilton's in the green?
Yeah, he DNF'd, but he's a wild card.
Oh, that's right, because both of them hit each other. Okay.
Correct. So everyone in the green DNF'd is how it currently is.
So it's Gasly, Tsunoda, and Mazepin are the options.
I can just pick any of them. How does that work?
Yes,
yeah.
Anything in the green until I fix the formula. Anything in the green is the same as the bottom place.
Okay, well then I'll keep Ricardo.
All right, and then I'll go with Bottas.
Oh, good thing I'm not facing off against you again.
When last time I faced off against Jeanmark, so maybe this time will be a little different. We'll see.
Bottas will crash out this race.
I doubt it.
Okay, Paola, who is your keeper? Perez, Sainz, Ricardo, and Raikkonen.
Perez has always left a bad taste in my mouth. So I'm gonna keep Sainz.
So I can't pick Bottas because Dad picked Bottas. Alonso, Stroll, Leclerc. Well, the most solid of these options, I guess, is Leclerc.
No, it's Alonso.
Nah. Well, let me look at the manager. Leclerc was 4th, so then that means I could pick... that's going to be rough. So wait, you picked Bottas, so you're probably going to pick Gasly. And I'm not going to want to pick Mazepin. I pick Alonso. That doesn't give me good options either. So if I pick Stroll, that gives me even worse options. Okay, I guess I'm getting Leclerc. What in the world? Okay, now that we have our keepers, it's now time for the draft. Like I said, for those that are watching, how the draft works is based off of the previous week's finishing order. And so Ricardo won. So if you picked up Ricardo, the only person that you could pick up at the bottom, well, we have the DNFs, right? So technically any of those people in the DNFs could then pick Ricardo. Okay, so let's begin with the match of Lords. Dominic, you get to draft first. You have Ricardo.
So I would pick up Gasly.
You're picking up Gasly. And then, Paola, you have Sainz, and so you get to do Schumacher or any of the people who DNF'd.
Let's go with Gasly.
Oh, bro just drafted Gasly.
Dun,
dun, dun.
I will go with Tsunoda.
Tsunoda gets you Leclerc all the way down.
She doesn't want Leclerc. She already has Sainz.
But do I? Thinking long term, I want Leclerc back as my keeper, so I'm going to go with Leclerc.
Big brain. Okay, bro.
What are my options?
So you have Gasly, so Perez down.
So is Gasly not on the bottom, or how does this work?
Anybody in the green is the same.
They're all considered on the bottom?
Because he's wondering if he could get Bottas.
Because I feel like Paola could have gotten Bottas.
But she knew about it.
That's a good point. Do you want to get Bottas or stick with Leclerc?
Stick with Leclerc.
Bottas, I will not pass up on this opportunity.
Okay, and then Bottas then allows you to draft Mazepin.
Great.
Who is your last pick, Paola? Leclerc.
Oh.
So Schumacher would be what's left.
Yeah. Okay.
Schumacher it is.
Okay, now for the match of kings. Dad, you picked Bottas, so your options are
Gasly.
Tsunoda, and Mazepin.
I'll take Gasly. He won't crash out again, will he?
I'm going to go with Tsunoda.
And then you have
hopefully he won't DNF. So that means I'm going to pick up
Ricardo.
Ricardo.
That's good. That's good for you. I wonder if you can get 2 good races in a row. So do I go with someone who's consistent like Sainz? Do I go with someone who might turn it around and go with Perez? Yeah, I wonder on this track if Ferraris are going to do better or Red Bull.
Well, this is a power circuit. There are some lower speed corners where Ferrari could stick in, but they're going to lose so much time on those straights.
Well, I'll probably regret it, but I'm going with Perez.
And then Perez will allow you to draft
Mick Schumacher.
You know, we haven't even had the Latifi chant. He's been doing good the last few races.
That's sad.
Well, he's in the middle of the pack, just not good enough to pick up, you know, because he's not at the bottom. So right. I guess my only option is Mazepin. Yeah. 3, 2, 1, reveal! It looks like we'll start off with the match of Lords. Dominic.
Like she's going to win the core race.
Bottas and Ricciardo, Gasly, and Mazepin. Bao has got Tsunoda and Schumacher. Oh, she's trying to stay in the court race. Interesting.
I don't think there's any way I win the King's race, so.
I'm surprised you turboed if you were going to.
Yeah, that's why I'm just surprised because you spent a credit on turbo. Unless you think that he could still beat you in the court race, I see. Okay.
I think he could, because science is, you just never know.
Yeah, that's a good point. Dad has got Bottas, who he is turboing, and Perez, Gasly, and Schumacher. And I've got Leclerc and Ricciardo. It's about time that I get some credits. That'll probably beat me. And Mazepin.
Like, is there a world where Bottas DNFs and then between Tsunoda and Schumacher, they score more than Ricciardo?
Yeah, and Leclerc gets on the podium. Bada bing, bada boom. That's been an amazing podcast. I'm so glad all of you are here. And itsy bitsy. Ooh. Our kitty cat. Meow.
She's not much of a waiver, is she?
No. Well, thank you, bro, for joining us. Thank you, Dad. Thanks, Paola. And until next time, we'll see you on the pit wall.